Hi guys, I'm back. Yes, I'm sorry because I didn't update last a week because chapter 3 I posted chapter 3 of Beginning to See the Light without being bettered. So I'm only recording or making the podfic of bettered chapters. So do not be worried because I think chapter 4 up to chapter 9 is already bettered, so I hope that I could update my podfic every week. Okay? And I just wanted to say in advance that I'm sorry because there is a scene here that it has so many characters, so it is hard for me to to have different voices. So pardon me if you cannot differentiate each and every of them. Okay? So I just hope that you like it, and please put your comments. Come on guys. A little encouragement will do. Thank you. Thank you guys. Okay, so here it is. Hope you like it. Beginning to See the Light, Chapter 3. Pickles. The buzz of the passengers rushed through him. The laughter and cries from them could be heard as they are reunited with their loved ones to celebrate their own Thanksgiving. Plane just landed, Blaine said as he answered his phone. He walked towards the exit of the airport, duffel bag strapped on his left shoulder, and stopped at the gate to wait for his driver. "Coop, I'll be there in a few minutes." Someone bumped heavily to him, causing him to drop his phone, which dissembled to pieces on impact. "Hey!" He turned and shouted to the man running back, which was oddly familiar to him. He dismissed the idea when he accidentally stepped on the phone battery. "Saying sorry wouldn't hurt, and I thought only people in New York were rude," he grumbled as he knelt down, picking the pieces of this device. A tall, hulking man bent down and helped him pick up the parts. "Sorry, my brother wasn't really feeling well," he said and mimicked vomiting. "I think it's from flying." He handed Blaine the parts he picked up. He nodded in understanding. "First flight?" he asked out of politeness. "No, actually, he likes traveling. It was his first time to feel sick after a trip," the tall guy said, confused. From a not-so-distant place, someone shouted, "Finn!" "Oh crap, that's my dad. Need to go, man. I'm sorry about that again," he said apologetically. "Call me if it's broken. We'll pay for the damages," he said as he pulled out his calling card from his wallet. "No big deal. It's still working." Blaine waved the phone as it lights up. "See?" he justified, stopping the giant from giving him his card. "Yeah, I've got to go." The stranger then rushed towards the other side of the airport. Blaine dialed his phone again to call his brother. "Hey, sorry about that. I dropped my phone," he assured his brother, knowing full well about his brother's worrisome and protective traits, a personality he inherited from their mother. "Anyway, I can see the car from here, and I'll be there in a few." He hung the phone, went inside the black SUV, waited for his driver to put his baggage in the trunk, and start the car to go back to his house in Westerville. Bert found himself again knocking on the bathroom door. "Kurt!" he knocked. "Kurt! Open the door! Are you alright, son?" he asked, worried about his son's health. The door opened and Kurt emerged from the bathroom, still wearing his pajamas. The hand towel that he had used for wiping the water remnants on his mouth draped over his shoulders. "Yeah, okay, I got a little bit dizzy, Dad. He stepped out of the bathroom and headed straight to the kitchen downstairs, letting his dad guide him through. Good morning, honey. Carol, his stepmother, greeted him. Here's your coffee. She handed him a coffee cup on which a colorful best brother in the world was printed. Kurt looked at the cup disgustingly. He held the cup to his nose and sniffed it. Whoa. He blenched from the odor and hurriedly ran to the sink to vomit the bits and bobs in his stomach. Uh, uh. Are you okay? Carl approached him and suddenly patted his back. Come on, go up to your room and rest. I'll make you tea to make you feel better. She helped Kurt to his room to lay him down under his blankets. Sleep, honey, she ordered and left the room after he heard Kurt make a faint snore. Kurt woke up in the silence of the house. He went downstairs to look for his parents, but all he saw was a note. Hospital emergency. Tea in the microwave. Drink it. He snickered at Carl's praising. She was obviously in a hurry to go to work. He finished drinking the tea, but he was still hungry and craving something else. He rummaged the kitchen's pantry and refrigerator. But he couldn't find the ingredients he was looking for. He then took a pen above the freezer and wrote, Went to mall. Kurt, under the note Carl had written. He looked over the kitchen windows. The weather was breezy, he assumed, and went to his room to change his clothes. He saw his reflection in the full-length mirror which was placed in the corner of his room, and carefully examined the bulge in his belly. Ugh, I need to cut off eating too much, he thought aloud. After Thanksgiving, he said as an afterthought, unwilling to not satisfy his hunger. He grabbed the keys to his old navigator, thankful that his dad kept it working, and proceeded downstairs. He double-checked the locks and walked towards his car. The mall was packed with last-minute shoppers, but fortunately the items he was looking for was still abundantly stocked. He filled the basket with the items he was waiting for and quickly went to the cashier to check out. Once he received the receipt for his grocery items, he headed to the exit doors. He balanced the paper bag with one arm and used the other to pat his pockets for his car keys, and continued walking towards the parking lot. He jolted when he walked into someone. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. He looked up after he rearranged the bag where it almost fell. He gasped as he stared at the figure in front of him. Blaine? He asked surprisingly. Kurt! Blaine nodded sheepishly. What are you doing here? Oh, I needed something. He gestured to the paper bag he was holding. I'm in Ohio. Blaine amended. Oh, Kurt was embarrassed for his previous answer. Thanksgiving with my family. How about you? Blaine laughed. Westerville is my hometown. Funny how we never mentioned where we grew up. A very uncomfortable silence lingered until a breeze passed them, and they both shivered from the cold. Do you want to go somewhere else? Somewhere warm? Blaine cringed at what he had didn't mean to imply. Coffee shop, I mean. There's a small shop over there. He pointed back to the mall. Yeah, sure. Aren't you going to buy something? He noticed Blaine's empty hands. No, I met my friends earlier. I was about to leave, but then you bumped to me, he explained while walking beside him. Kurt made a forced laugh. He knows he's not the only one who is uncomfortable with the situation. How awkward it is to greet your one night stand 3 months after that night, Kurt thought to himself. They entered the almost empty coffee shop where only a few customers were staying. Obviously, husbands or fathers who were waiting for their wives to finish shopping. Blaine strode towards the counter and ordered an extra hot soy latte and biscotti. He waved a hand for Kurt to order, but Kurt shook his head. Oh, no thank you. For some reason, coffee makes me nauseous. He glanced at the contents of the bag he was holding and smiled to Blaine. I'm good, I'll just eat this. Blaine paid for the coffee and walked to an empty table. They sat as he waited for his coffee to finish. How have you been? Blaine asked to diffuse the awkward silence. Good. Better, I think, Kurt answered vaguely and placed the paper bag in his lap, took the jar of pickles, Nutella, and strawberry-flavored your plate from it, and placed it on the table. Except for the day's feelings that I have 4 weeks now, I don't know why, he added to redirect the conversation about his relationship with Chandler. He opened all the containers, took one pickle with his thumb and pointer finger and dipped it into the yogurt. Are you alright? Blaine asked and watched how Kurt took pleasure in eating the dipped pickles. I think so, Kurt said after swallowing. He then dipped the pickles in the Nutella, bit it and almost groaned at its taste. He noticed Blaine staring at him and he felt embarrassed for his actions. Oh, I'm so rude. You want some? He pushed the jars towards him and gestured for Blaine to eat. It's really good. No, thank you. Blaine squinted at how Kurt dipped the pickles into the yogurt and then into the chocolate dip, mixing the flavors. You have a very strange taste, Kurt chuckled at Blaine's assessment. Yeah, I just developed this strange cravings for pickled flavored food. He laughed again. Okay, let's stop talking about my food choices. How about you? Are you in, you know? Kurt inquired about Blaine's supposed blissful relationship. He glanced towards his right hand, where he wore the engagement ring before he gave it back to Blaine the night they had parted. Blaine was about to answer him, but the barista called his name to claim his order. Blaine Anderson! Hold that thought. He stood up after Kurt nodded. He went back to his previous seat to continue the conversation after he grabbed his coffee. He shifted uncomfortably. He opened the lid of the paper coffee cup, poured cinnamon on it, and used the biscotti as a stirrer. He nibbled at the biscotti as he put the lid back on. Looks like I wasn't the only one with a strange taste, Kurt commented through gritted teeth, a hand on his mouth as he tried to push the bile down his throat. Kurt, are you okay? Aren't you feeling well? Blaine asked anxiously as he saw Kurt's teary eyes. Do you want to get out of here? Yeah, please. Blaine helped Kurt stand up from his position, guiding him from behind, both hands on either of Kurt's elbows as they exit the coffee shop, leaving their orders on the table. He let Kurt sit on the bench outside the coffee shop and waited for a few minutes until Kurt was able to stand up and compose himself. They silently went to the parking lot where both of their cars were parked. Are you sure you're okay? I can give you a ride to the hospital if you want to. Blaine can't help but inquire about the pale man's health. I'm okay now. Sorry about that again. Coffee doesn't really go with my stomach nowadays. Kurt gave an exhausted smile as he tangled himself from Blaine. See you, Blaine, he hurriedly said, embarrassed about the drama he had caused earlier. He then strode away in the other direction. Blaine watched Kurt walk away from him, and at the corner of his eye, he saw a car rushing towards Kurt. He shouted his name, Kurt! And quickly ran to Kurt when Kurt didn't notice the red vehicle coming right at him. He gripped Kurt's elbow and pulled him away from the edge of the lane, then fiercely hugged him, gripping him like he was his lifeline. And because this is Ohio, and they were obviously gay, they were greeted with gay insults rather than apologies from the speeding car.
Ha! Gay!
Blaine didn't bother to shout back at the homophobe, because he was much more concerned with the rigid, pale man in his arms. Kurt! Kurt! He said after parting their bodies and lightly shook Kurt's shoulder to get his attention. Kurt, please look at me, he ordered and leveled his eyes with Kurt. Blaine was shortly relieved that when Kurt moved his eyes and stared at him, but was gone immediately when those same eyes rolled upwardly and Kurt went limp as he faded in Blaine's arms. Shit! Blaine cursed. He carried Kurt with his left arm supporting the back of Kurt's knee and right arm for Kurt's neck. He was momentarily surprised by the boy's heavy weight, but quickly jogged towards his car and laid Kurt in the back seat of his Audi. He strapped his seatbelt on and rushed to Westerville Hospital, breaking almost all traffic rules along the way. Kurt squinted his eyes to the blinding lights that picked through him. How are you feeling? Someone had asked him as he felt his bed dipped. Where am I? He asked, and managed to look at the hazel eyes that were staring back at him. Blaine, his mind supplied, and remembered the awkward reunion earlier. Oh, what happened? Why am I in the hospital, and why are you here? He questioned Blaine. His last memory was when they were still in the coffee shop. Blaine helped a struggling Kurt sit up in the bed. I drove you to the hospital after you passed out. He placed a pillow behind Kurt's back to let him be more comfortable. You were almost hit by a car and He trailed off, not sure why he'd want to boast his heroic act to Kurt, when he was always bragging his accomplishment to other people. You saved me. Again, Kurt answered for him. Thank you, Blaine. Kurt blushed and picked a glance at Blaine. Blaine didn't answer for him. He just stared at the walls behind Kurt and rubbed the back of his neck, looking sheepish. My dad! Kurt remembered his family and worried about stressing them over a near-death accident. He was about to scramble from his bed to look for a phone booth, but stopped when he remembered that he forgot his phone at home. It meant no one had contacted his family because Blaine, other than his name, knew nothing about him. Furthermore, they could not contact his family when they couldn't look for his emergency contact, which was registered in his phone book. He relaxed himself and listened again to Blaine's explanation. No phone on you, so I was waiting for you to wake up to call them. Kurt nodded and let Blaine continue. Do you want to call them now? He asked, and was about to help Kurt by giving him his own phone. No, it's okay. I'm fine now," Kurt said, not wanting his family to know about the accident. Blaine wanted to argue with him, but decided not to because he shouldn't care about Kurt's well being. He nodded, unsure what move he should make, but then remembered the nurse's instructions. "Oh, yeah, the nurse told me you should stay in here to wait for the specialist." Specialist? Kurt was nervous why they had needed a specialized doctor when he only fainted. "Yeah, they took blood from you earlier and said that you should stay here." Blaine saw the nervous look on Kurt's face. "Kurt, are you sure you're okay? Are you in any pain?" he asked, letting himself carry a bit more than he intended to. "Do I have a brain tumor? Was it cancerous? Was it I always felt dizzy? Am I dying?" Kurt asked frantically. A voice which was familiar to Kurt interrupted his panic. "No, Kurt, you're not dying." Quinn, his friend from high school, said as a way of greeting. "Quinn, what are you doing here?" Kurt asked the blonde as he watched her look at the clipboard hang at the end of Kurt's bed. "I'm your doctor," she answered and moved closer to Kurt and extended her hand to the other men sitting on Kurt's bed. "Quinn Mpreg." She introduced herself and gave Blaine a tight smile when they shook hands. Kurt was confused. He knew Quinn was a doctor, but she was an obstetrician. They specialized in pregnancy and not brain damage or whatever illness he had. "Kurt, I need to talk. I need to speak with you in private," Quinn said earnestly, giving Kurt a look that says the man beside him should go. Kurt knew exactly what Quinn is trying to tell him, so he twisted his body and talked to the savior. "Blaine, thank you again for being my knight." He blushed and briefly remembered the first time Blaine ever said to him. "I'm alright now. She is my friend. You can go home, and sorry for disturbing your day." Blaine gave Kurt a slight smile and stood up, willing to give them the privacy they needed. "Take care of yourself, Kurt," he said finally, and proceeded to walk out from the hospital ward. He was halfway to the elevator when he remembered that he put his phone out on the bed stand after texting Cooper about his friend's situation. He went back to the ward and was about to pull the curtains that separate Kurt's bed from the other beds, but Quinn's word halted him from doing so. "You're pregnant. 91 days now." He can see Quinn's silhouette moving closer to Kurt. Blaine immediately backtracked the night they had first met, but his mind was just too occupied to calculate the number of days from their first meeting up to this day. "It hasn't been 3 months since we met, right? It's not 3 months," he questioned himself. Blaine staggered in his footing as he tried to deny himself that Kurt wasn't one of the male carriers. That the nausea, weird taste, and headaches that he saw Kurt experience earlier was due to some new unexplainable disease that are similar to the symptoms of pregnancy. He denied it and started to panic, but from the whirlwind of his mind, he straightened up when he heard the question he had been dreading to ask himself. "The guy earlier, is he the father?" Quinn asked hesitantly. She tightened the grip on Kurt's when the shivering boy in her arms started to wail. "He is," he answered and cried again in Quinn's arm. "Is he the father? Is he the father? Is he the father?" These words occupied Blaine's mind as he unconsciously drove himself home. Still bewildered about his new discovery, he let himself inside and went straight up to his room in the left wing, ignoring the worried look that his brother had shot him. He groaned. and plopped down on the covers of his king-size bed and stared at the ceiling.
Hey.
Blaine heard Cooper's voice, but he didn't respond. Blaine felt Cooper's body as he sat on his bed, but remained silent. His reactions remained stoic to his surroundings.
Is your friend alright? He isn't heavily injured, is he?
He asked Blaine and made himself comfortable, head resting on the headboard as he looked at Blaine's frozen state.
Is Kurt still alive?
Cooper asked as he tried remembering Blaine's friend's name. Also dreaded for the answer himself.
He's not dead, Cooper.
Blaine's brother left a sigh of relief, grateful that no one was dead.
But he isn't alright,
Blaine added.
I'm not alright, Coop. Everything is a mess, Cooper.
He sat up and faced Cooper, kneeling beside him.
Kurt is pregnant,
he said simply to Cooper, but only met with a confused stare.
Wasn't he a guy?
Cooper asked Blaine confusedly, but then remembered the news about rare male carriers decades ago. Hypotheses where they have a twin sister that didn't evolve properly in their mother's womb, thus merging their functions of their organs with their twin brother.
Congratulations for him.
He didn't finish his sentence when the realization hit him why Blaine was sulking over Kurt's pregnancy.
Are you...
Cooper trailed off again. Blaine nodded at Cooper's vague question and dropped himself on the bed again. Cooper knew he should comfort his brother, but he felt a tinge of envy when he could not bear a child with his wife. He shook his head, and for once he wilted away his selfish thoughts and lay down beside him.
What are you two going to do about it?
Cooper asked as he mimicked Blaine's position and stared at the ceiling.
I don't know. We haven't talked about it. He didn't even know that I knew about the pregnancy.
He groaned and stood up facing Cooper.
Ugh! Things are smooth now with me and Seb, Cooper. We're trying to work our relationship even if we live 100 miles away.
He paced around the room.
I don't want to fuck up things with Bass again, Cooper. What am I going to do?
He desperately asked.
Tell him the truth?
His older brother answered, but received decklarge from the curly-haired man.
Maybe,
he added quietly.
Tell him? Tell him what exactly? That I fucked someone during our trip in LA? That I was drunk and I thought I was fucking him? That Kurt was a carrier and pregnant with my child?
He shouted every single question to his innocent brother.
How am I going to tell him that I'm father now, huh, Cooper? Tell me!
His voice increased as he uttered every word. He turned around abruptly when he heard a smash outside his room. He saw his mother looking at him with wide eyes, broken vase at her foot and mouth wide open.
Oh, Mom, I can't explain, Mom.
Blaine started but was cut off when his mother slowly walked towards him and fiercely hugged him. He dwelled in her mother's embrace, clearly needing all the support he could get. He was taken back, though, when he saw her mother awe-stricken, when he expected anger or pity or sympathy from her.
Mom?
He looked at Cooper for an answer, but he just shrugged. His mom, a dark but beautiful woman dressed simply in her designer's coat, patted him on the cheek and took his hand and led him out of the door.
Mom, where are we going?
He was confused why his mom led him, with Cooper behind towards the garage.
To meet Kurt,
she said in a matter-of-fact voice.
This is going to be huge,
Cooper exclaimed excitedly as he sat in the back of their family car. Blaine groaned.
Oh.
He knew his mom was the driving force for their family. No one refused her. So he let them drive to the hospital and think of positive thoughts about his impending reunion with Kurt. Kurt, kiddo, it's okay, it's okay. Bert dropped his son's head against his chest and let his son cry, as he and his wife said encouraging words to him, even if they didn't know his condition yet. Kurt having his breakdown in the hospital ward didn't erase his mind at all. Bert stared at Quinn. Although he was thankful to her for informing them of Kurt's whereabouts, he gave her a questioning look. But Quinn only shook her head and pointed at Kurt. He was starting to panic at this point, imagining all manner of sicknesses or diseases that his son might have been exposed to. After a few more minutes, Kurt's cry had already subsided and his father asked him what was wrong. Kurt stared at the 5 pairs of eyes waiting for him to answer. He gulped loudly and pulled the hem of his shirt up to show the growing bulge of his belly. Kurt looked at all of them again, and noticed how his father and Finn only looked at it with confusion, while there were knowing looks from his stepmom, and sister-in-law. He raised his eyebrow towards them, waiting for an explanation.
I'm a nurse. I'm supposed to know this. Carl smiled, and I secretly took a sample from you to get tested in the Lima hospital. I was going to talk with you later this evening, but it's too late, huh?
Kurt smiled at her and was about to ask her what kind of sample she took from him.
You don't want to know, honey, Carl answered before he could ask him. I presume Quinn gave you all the details about male pregnancy, right?
Carl saw Kurt and Quinn nodding and mumbled an affirming sound. She smiled to her son and received a tight hug from him. Thanks, Mom, Kurt whispered in her ear, then glanced at Rachel, who was leaning against Finn's embrace. Their hands intertwined, rested on Rachel's big belly. Motherly instinct, I guess, Rachel said vaguely. You have this certain glow around you that only other pregnant mothers, or in your case, father, can be distinguished. She walked away from her husband and proceeded to give Kurt the tightest hug that she and her belly was willing to give. Kurt wiped the tears from his cheeks and muttered thank you to Rachel. Then the air had completely changed when Bert spoke.
You're pregnant?
His father asked harshly.
I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill that Chandler.
His father repeated his threats.
Dad, relax. You're scaring Kurt.
Finn carefully said to calm his stepdad. Bert directed his outburst earlier when he looked at his frightened son. He held Kurt again and whispered apologies to him. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm just surprised and all. It's not Chandler, Dad, Kurt confessed, and from the confused looks from his family, he whispered, Chandler is not the baby daddy. Finn was about to ask his brother who knocked him up when the curtain behind him was abruptly pulled down and 3 figures emerged from behind it. There were 2 guys behind the small but fierce lady. The lady walked up to where Kurt was leaning on his father, and she extended her hand.
Kurt Hummel?
Kurt peeked behind her and saw Blaine cowering behind a taller guy with similar features like him. But Blaine didn't look at him straight and glanced back at the woman in front of him. Kurt nodded at the woman and shook his hands. Yeah, who are you?
Amelia Anderson.
She smiled widely, but it sent shivers to Kurt.
Your mother-in-law.
A series of gasps, threats, and curses were thrown, but Amelia disregarded it and stretched her arms widely.
Welcome to the Andersons, Kurt.
She then proceeded to give Kurt a warm and lengthy hug, making the two boys involved in the affair left with mouth and eyes wide open. Both were surprised about the drastic turn of events. Beginning to See the Light, Chapter 3, Nights, is finished. Oh my god, yeah. Guys, please don't forget to leave your comments, the like button, and please subscribe on my YouTube video. And guys, I'm sorry again if you are somehow confused with the voice changing, because it's really hard in doing that. I hope you understand, and I hope you still like my video. And please watch my read Won't Be Denied by You. I'm going to post the following chapters hopefully next week. I submitted 2 chapters to my beta, and I'm doing the 4th chapter now. Okay, see you guys, bye.